You know, I wonder what's going on in Saskatoon these days. Well, let's find out. That's not a good start. Civilian arrest technically legal by Saskatoon security guard, but reasonable use of force in question. Owner horrified after altercation involving Indigenous woman outside his Saskatoon grocery store. First Nations group calls for security guard to be fired following violent arrest at Saskatoon store. Indigenous woman whose violent arrest at a Saskatoon store caught on camera, traumatized by incident. This violence needs to stop. Mayor Charlie Clark decries violent apprehension in FreshCo parking lot. Guys, what are you doing in Saskatoon? Well, let's figure it out. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Field Training with Hansy. I am your host, Hans Gruber, aka Hansy Heinzenberger, aka Brad. I am one of your CSPN admins. And here on Field Training with Hansy, we try to provide you, the frontline security professional, with relevant hands-on training, gear reviews, and video breakdowns. Today, we are going to take a look at an arrest that took place in early April involving a single loss prevention guard and a lady at a FreshCo grocery store on 33rd Street in Saskatoon. All right, now, I believe in reasonable training. Before we break down the video, I think it's important that you, the security professional, have an idea of what is involved when it comes to an arrest. So, I'm going to break down a couple of pieces of the criminal code that are relevant to this situation. We're going to go over a couple of good practices involving the 5 steps of an arrest and communication. So, before we get into the video, let's get into some training, all right? So, without further ado, here's Section 25 of the Criminal Code. Section 25 of the Criminal Code talks about protection of persons acting under authority. As it says here, everyone who is required or authorized by law to do anything in the administration or the enforcement of the law as a private person, B, as a peace officer or public officer, C, in aid of a peace officer or public officer, or D, by virtue of his office, is, if he acts on reasonable grounds, justified in what he is doing is required, or authorized to do so in using as much force as necessary for that purpose. Essentially, what this means, me as a security practitioner, if I need to arrest somebody and that arrest involves going hands-on to effect the arrest, Section 25 protects me from anything that could come up. Okay? Now, it's important to understand Section 26. Section 26 talks about unauthorized or excessive force. If I step beyond my bounds, I can be civilly and criminally liable for any excessive force. Okay? Let's move forward. Let's talk about Section 494 of the Criminal Code, particularly subsection 2, which is really what applies to most security guards working around the country. This covers arrest by owner of property. The owner or person in lawful possession of property, or a person authorized by the owner or by a person in lawful possession of property, may arrest a person without a warrant if they find them committing a criminal offense on or in relation to that property, and they make the arrest at that time, or they make the arrest within a reasonable time after the offense has been committed, and they believe on reasonable grounds that it is not feasible for a peace officer to intervene in those circumstances. Okay? What's important here to notice? You see I highlighted the word may. What does may mean in the context of the law? Well, what it means is that you can do something. It has an opposite word, though, and that word is shall. Okay? Shall means that you must do something. An example would be 494 subsection 3. If you arrest somebody, you shall forthwith deliver them to a peace officer. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Okay? This is section 494 of the Criminal Code. This is what allows security guards to make arrests if they have fines committing. And I'll break that down near the end of the video for you as well. Let's move along. Something else to talk about is decision making when we talk about use of force. Here we have what's called a use of force decision matrix. When we decide that we are going to go hands-on with somebody, there are really three things that we need to think about. We need to answer a few tactical questions, a few legal questions, and a few optical questions. The first one being on the tactical program here. Can you effectively use the technique? Okay. As an instructor, there are a lot of techniques that I teach. I'm trained in a few different disciplines that I can teach. And with that being said, not everybody can effectively use every single technique that is out there. Okay? Something to think about. Everybody has physical limitations. Is the technique likely to be effective? Some techniques are very effective, some aren't as effective. It's also important to consider, is it likely to be effective with this very specific person in these very specific circumstances? Okay? Again, not every technique is going to work on every single person. Lots to think about here. If it may be ineffective or proves ineffective, what other options are available? Okay? Food for thought. Let's look at the legal questions. What is the basis for using force? Okay? Are they being physically resistant? Are they being assaultive? Are they using grievous bodily harm or death? Are they armed with a weapon? These are questions you got to ask. Are they being passively resistant? Even then, you would be authorized by law to use force if necessary to remove them from a property. Okay? Is force necessary? Not every single situation dictates that we need to use force. Not every person sets up a situation where we have to go hands-on. Some people are very compliant. Okay? Is it reasonable considering all of the circumstances? Is it justifiable? It's a good question. What regulation and case law provides authority for the use of force? So something to think about. Are you thinking about things like Section 25 of the Criminal Code? Are you thinking about Sections 35 and 34 of the Criminal Code that allow you to use force to protect property or to protect yourself? Okay. What other reasonable enforcement options are available? Is this a situation where instead of arresting somebody and using force, we could just simply trespass them and serve them a trespass notice and bar them from the property? Perhaps. Is the force used supported considering the totality of circumstance? Again, a few things to think about here. Okay, let's move along. Let's consider optics. Is the force ethical? Is the use of force in the situation ethical? It may not be. Right? A lot of things to think about. We also want to think impacts. Think about it this way. You, a contract security guard, you really have two bosses. You have your client, and then you have the people that sign your paycheck, right? What is the PR impact for the client at the end of the day? If you do something, you represent them, you represent their interests as well. What is the PR impact for your employer? Okay? And lastly, what is the PR impact for you, the security professional? Is this a situation that you might not recover from job-wise? Is this something that's going to lead you into either being arrested or lead you into a situation where you're then unemployed? Right? There's a lot to consider here. As a use of force instructor, and a lot of people, they like to ask me, hey, Brad, what do you do in this very specific set of context and circumstances? I'll be honest, it's a really hard question to answer because I'm not there in the moment. And a lot of things, a lot of very, very specific circumstances and pieces of context will change how things are dictated and how things need a proper response. Okay? So there's a lot to think about here. Now, we've talked about the legislation side of things. We've talked a little bit about use of force decision making. Let's look at communication, because communication is equally important. As a use of force instructor, I teach something called TACCOM, or Tactical Communications. And you might wonder, well, what is that? Well, TACCOM does a lot of different things for us, okay? First of all, it creates positive witnesses. And this is a situation where if I'm involved in an incident, people are gathering, they've got their cell phones out and they're recording me, it's really hard for them to create a narrative that they came up with, because I'm there, I'm explaining to people that I'm security, I'm explaining that this person is under arrest, and I'm giving them direction to stop resisting, to put their hands somewhere where I can see them, to make sure that it's a safe environment for everybody involved. And, any witness nearby, they can't say that anything else happened. They can only say, well, I heard the guards say this, 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 and this. And it really sets the scene. Okay? Let's look at another aspect here. It gives direction to the accused and any other person involved. This might be a situation where you have a person that you're trying to arrest and they're being so uncooperative that you need to tell them, hey, roll over, get your hands out of your pocket. This might be a situation where you and your partner are trying to accomplish the same goal but through different means. So sometimes it's important to tell your colleagues, hey, grab his arm and put it behind his back, or hey, roll him over onto this part of the body. Right? You get the idea. The last part I feel is really important. It helps you breathe. Okay? We want to think about that. Arrests can be a very, very physical and very dynamic and stressful situation. And anybody who's involved in any aspect of, say, weightlifting or very, very physical activities will tell you that breathing is a very, very important part of this. So you want to be able to make sure that you're breathing. If you're talking, you're breathing. You're doing a good job of it. Okay? Let's look at another legal aspect here. Okay? Many of you, if you've been trained to make arrests, you should know there are five different reasons, or 5 different things, rather, that you must do to effect a legal arrest. So let's look at those. And the first one is identify yourself. The person that you're arresting, they need to know that you are a representative of the property or management, and that you're a security guard at that property, whether that you're in uniform or plain clothes. And you need to be clear and identify yourself and what's going on. Okay? The next part is very important. This satisfies a few parts of the Constitution Act, or as you might know it, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Okay? You need to tell people that they're under arrest and tell them why. As you may know, people have the right in Canada to be free from being arbitrarily detained, and they have a right to know exactly why they're being detained and have a right to due process. Okay? So it is important that they know they're under arrest and you explain to them why they're under arrest. Now, when we look at why, I hear a lot of convoluted and robotic answers from people sometimes. A lot of people don't know about something called transit fraud. Let me ask you, do you know what transit fraud is? Ask yourself. If you don't know basically what it is, it's when you take a cab, you get out of the cab and you run like heck and you don't pay for the cab. It's not a good situation. That's transit fraud. There's also fare evasion and a number of other things that fall more under like the Provincial Offences Act and such, but transit fraud. It's a summary conviction offense. Okay? Somebody that you're arresting for transit fraud, they might not know what that is, and they might look at you like, I don't know what that is. Explain it to them. You're under arrest because you didn't pay for the taxi. You're under arrest because you hit that guy. Right? Very simple. Keep it very simple so that the person that you're arresting understands what's going on. Okay? The next part is important as well. Let's take a look at. Take physical control of the accused. And what we mean here could mean a lot of different things based on your very specific set of context. You might have a person who is hypothetically very cooperative. You tell them that, hey, I'm store security, I'm arresting you for theft, and they turn around and say, look, sir, I'm really sorry. Here, have the property back. I took this and this. I'm a kleptomaniac. I'm really sorry. I'm going to cooperate. Whatever you need, I'm not going to do anything. That person doesn't need to be placed in handcuffs. Remember, we have to justify the application of handcuffs when we use them. Okay? Whether it be a situation of violence or a situation where somebody is trying to flee, we have to justify the application of handcuffs. If they turn around and they're absolutely cooperative, it's really hard to justify that. Okay? So if you have somebody who's cooperative, it might just be as simple as saying to them, sir, please come with me. It might be as simple as leading them with one arm and like placing your hand on their back and guiding them in that direction. Or it could be as complicated as trying to place them in handcuffs in a dynamic and team environment. And, several people may be involved in doing that. Okay? But you have to take physical control of that person. Once you've told them they're under arrest, they do not have a legal right to leave. Okay? And if they do, well, that's resisting arrest, and they can be charged for that as well. Okay? Let's take a look at another aspect that, again, applies to the Constitution Act or the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and that is reading them their rights to counsel. Okay? Now, depending on their age, you might be reading them one of two different sets of rights. If they're a youth, they have a little more access to different things and, different types of rights, whether that's having their parents present for them, and, the rights are a little more easily explained, whereas with the adult set, it's pretty cut and dry. Okay? So, where do we find our rights? You should find them in the back of your memo book, which, as we talked about last week, is one of the most useful tools that you can carry as a guard. They should be back there. I would always encourage you to read them out of the book. Now, the law says you don't have to. You can go and memorize them. That's great. There really is no reason to. Best practice, read it out of the memo book, guys. If you screw it up and you don't deliver them right, it could be brought up in court, and it could be reason to have the case against the accused dropped. So again, food for thought. And the last part of this, again, a legal requirement, 494 subsection 3, is delivery to a peace officer. If you arrest somebody, you shall forthwith deliver them to a peace officer. Now you might say, well, hey, Brad, what's a peace officer? Well, a peace officer is a lot of different things. It's anybody who's a police officer, sheriff's deputy, a warden, park warden, fish and game officer, military police officer, CP rail police, special constables, bailiffs outside of the province of Ontario, civil constables in Nova Scotia, and the list goes on. CBSA officers. Again, these are your law and security professionals that are at the government level. Okay, they're sworn in, and they have legislation that covers whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing. Okay, now, at this point, I've provided to you and dropped on your little heads a whole bunch of knowledge bombs. Okay, we've gone over Section 25 of the Criminal Code. We've looked at aspects of Section 494. I've quickly talked about why communication is important, and we've gone over the 5 steps to an arrest. Now, all in all, I didn't go too in depth. We're only about 17 minutes into the video here, but I've given you basic knowledge that should really help you determine when you watch the video you're about to see, should give you an idea of, allow you to create your own opinion. And that's what I want to do here. I'm going to try to provide to you my unbiased thoughts and opinions here on what we're about to see. Okay? Now, I've watched this video a number of times, many number of times. And I have a really good breakdown as to how this works. So, without further ado, the feature presentation, Your Arrest in Saskatoon. Let's take a look at this, guys. I'm going to break it down part by part as I see fit. And hopefully I can point out to you some issues and inconsistencies. And once we're done looking at that video, I'm going to provide to you some final thoughts. Okay, so let's check this video out. Let's see what it says.
Somebody help!
Are you kidding? I don't think you have the authority to do this. Holy fuck.
Oh, viewer discretion is advised, folks.
Can you grab my body cam for me?
All right, so we're like 15 seconds in. He's got his handcuffs out. She's squirming around, and she's squirming around real good. My first thought is this guy doesn't have control of the situation. I would also say, I mean, it's really hard to tell how far away he is from the camera. I'm going to say probably about 2 meters or so. He's not being very loud. I mean, you can hear him on the phone, but he's not communicating in a fashion that commands respect in such a way. He's not communicating to direct people. So there's a lot going on here. Let's keep watching. Let's see what else we can see.
Hey!
All right. Again, cuffs are out. He's got no control over her. This is not a good start. She's sitting up. You've got witnesses gathered around. And something to think about. Again, 25 seconds in, he hasn't really said too much. We've got people gathering around. Put yourself in the shoes of the person standing here in the background with the gray sweater and the black COVID mask. Say she just walked up. She might have no idea what it is that she's seeing and what's going on. She could come to a safe conclusion that this person is assaulting the victim on the ground. Yet that's not really what's happening because he's not choosing to create effective witnesses or positive witnesses, rather. Okay?
Would you cut it out?
I'm not cutting it out.
Girl, like,
Hey! You want to turn it into assault?
you're assaulting me. Who are you? Did you show identification?
Okay, so a couple things here I'm going to point out. She said, "You're assaulting me." Well, something to remember here, Section 25 of the Criminal Code protects him because he's trying to effect an arrest. Okay? I'm going to talk about 4 things that are important to making a good shoplifting arrest shortly. Now, there's something else to notice here. Take a look at that handcuff. You'll see it's not on anybody, and that single strand is dangling open, dangling loose. Dangling as it could be a very dangerous object. That's a really bad situation to find yourself in. Luckily for him, he's still holding the cuffs and the other cuff is not attached to anybody. But I've seen and I've heard of situations where somebody's been in cuffs or they've got one cuff hooked up to a wrist and the other cuff is dangling loosely with the single strand hanging wide open. And that person starts throwing fists. And what ends up usually happening is that open cuff gets hooked onto a nostril, a mouth, an eyeball, the ear, clothing, etc. And it really amps up the danger and it essentially turns the handcuffs into a weapon. So you got to remember, guys, your handcuffs should not come out until you have control of your subject. Because he has his handcuffs out now, he's really only able to effectively use one hand, not both. My first opinion here, and my professional opinion, this guy doesn't have any, good training. He may have some very basic training. I don't think it's very substantial, and I don't think it's really anything more than hey, this is how handcuffs work. But again, I can't say for certain. So let's keep looking. Right? And there that handcuff is. It's still open. Oh, there we go. Okay, we got one wrist hooked up. We're onto a half-decent start here.
What are you? I'm security. Whoa!
Okay. Bystanders are asking this guy, "Who are you?" "I'm security." "Well, okay. Who are you security for? Why aren't you giving anybody direction?" And have the police been called at this point? There's so many things to think about here, guys. Communication is really important. It creates a narrative.
Can somebody just call police, please? I didn't make this light.
Again, a very serious lack of control.
I'm trying to get you on the wrist.
Well, it's not going to do much. What are you arresting me for?
Okay, hey, that's a fair question. Has he used his 5 steps to an arrest? My opinion so far is that he doesn't have any use of force training. Maybe he hasn't been trained in making an arrest. It's very possible. There are a lot of companies out there that do some really interesting things.
You don't have the authority to arrest
I don't even
her.
have a fucking receipt from the stuff that I bought. It's there in the garbage. Never mind. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Face diaper.
You know, something else to look at here. He's been on his knees here over top of her back for about 35 seconds or so. And he looks pretty dogged. He looks really tired. He looks beat. So something to understand here. I don't know how long this interaction has been going on so far. The video starts what could be, well into an incident. It may have started just moments into it. I don't know. But it really highlights the importance for physical fitness, guys. If your job involves making arrests, start to think about your physical fitness. I know a lot of people, the adrenaline dump will help. Well, the adrenaline dump will also put you into cardiac arrest. So there, again, not a situation you want to be in. You're halfway locking up somebody and you go into ventricular fibrillation. Right? Not a good day.
Sir, are you security here?
Yes, I am.
Your face diaper slipped off your nose.
Oh, watch closely. Here we go. Boom! Shot to the face, and it connects really well. Now, one of two things is going to happen here if this happens to you. Hopefully, you stay in the fight. It is not pleasant to get punched in the face like that. And, that was a good and wide shot. There are, again, things that you can do to prevent that. If he's got a hold of one cuff, I mean, grab the chain and yank her down to the ground and keep her down at the very, very least. But it's plain to see we're a minute and 39 seconds in here, and he has absolutely no control of this person. She is controlling him. They were on the ground. She has managed to get up. She has managed to walk away. And what you're about to see in a moment, she's going to walk to that brown Ford Escape in the background there. She's going to get in it and sit down. Where's the control? Boom. Okay, again, took a sucker punch to the face there. As I mentioned, one of two things can happen. Looks like he's staying in the fight. The other option, and I've seen this before, some people, they take that shot and they're down and out and they're out of the fight. It's not a good situation to be in. So you got to have the will in the back of your mind to keep going. Yeah, being hit in the face really hurts and it can cause some very serious injuries. But you have to have the will to keep going because you don't know what's going to happen next. Stay in the fight, keep going, stay strong. So let's keep plugging away. Let's see what else we can look at.
Oh my fucking God.
Again, folks, use your viewer discretion is definitely advised today.
I don't know what to do. Do I help her? Do I not help her? I can't turn.
I need help.
All right, so something interesting here. A member of the crowd saying, do I help her? Do I not help her? Well, my professional opinion, don't get involved in an arrest. Not a good situation to be in. And if you're going to go and help her, it's a good way to, catch and obstruct charge. So again, something to think about here. If you find yourself being a bystander to the situation and you see that it's not a good arrest, call the police, get the police involved, keep people back. Don't put yourself into this position, guys. As I mentioned, she's been able to get up, walk away, assault this guy in the process, and now she's made it to her vehicle. And you're about to see her sit down. Something to think about here. This is not a very safe position for the guard to be in himself. Who knows what's in that vehicle? She could have a knife. She could have any kind of an edged weapon in there, a blunt object, a firearm, something that could really seriously hurt him. The other option, she might be able to get her keys out, which she does have in her hands. She might be able to get them into the ignition, turn the ignition over, and now she's driving the vehicle. If she slams it into reverse and injures a bunch of bystanders, and injures or kills him in the process, what was the arrest for at that point? Again, there's huge safety concern at this point. If I was in this guy's position, I probably would disengage at this point. Just simply, I don't know what's in the car. Who knows? She might even go, okay, you know what, you got me, but I'm not getting out of the car and wait for the police. We don't know what could be the alternative here if the disengage was explored. And, you could even look at the legal aspect here. He's created this situation through his actions, as she has too. It takes two people to put yourselves in this situation here. It can be argued that if he's able, the accused here is able to get the car into reverse and she backs out and injured somebody, it's not hard to point fingers at the guard to say, well, you contributed to this too, right? It's the very same reason why a lot of police services these days are disengaging when it comes to vehicle pursuits, because injuries happen and they typically involve members of the public who were not involved in the situation. So let's keep watching.
I have kids here.
Help me!
He's crying out for help. It looks like he's hurt pretty bad. Now, the rest of the video, you can see there's a good 7 minutes left. And we'll watch all 7 minutes of them, but it doesn't really change. He doesn't end up getting out of the vehicle throughout these next 7 minutes. It's a long time to be in a dangerous situation. At any point, she can get that car going.
Can you hold it?
I got her glasses and I got this.
Can you just hold this and record? I'm gonna go get her stuff.
But why would she park right
Arlene,
here and steal
hi.
from the store?
Oh! Diane!
Let go of her!
Let go of her!
Help me!
No! The police are coming. Let them deal with this.
Help me, somebody, please. I'm bleeding, I need help. I'm bleeding, I need help.
You know, I got to be honest. There's a little part of me that hearing him call out for help, that he's bleeding, he needs help. It gets me in that sort of soft spot, and I feel genuinely bad for him that nobody's willing to intervene to at least assist him, to keep the crowd back, to help him in any way, to render aid to him. It's a scary situation to be in, as now you can argue that this guy is vastly outnumbered by people who do not support his narrative. Again, guys, communication is key here.
Somebody come help! Somebody help!
You don't need help. You need to get out of her car.
I need help!
Get out of her car.
Somebody help me!
Call 911!
They have been called. You let go of her.
Let go. The cops are called. Let go.
I noticed that you have this, so do not put that in jeopardy for someone else.
Please,
I don't know. I'm just saying.
The cops are...
Okay. So he's sitting here, he's in the car. You'll notice on her left sleeve there's a little bit of his blood. Not a good situation. You can look at this from a few points of view. He looks absolutely gassed. I would be concerned that him in his position on the car there is causing her positional asphyxiation. It's possible. I'm not saying that is or what isn't happening. But you know, there's a huge lack of control and a huge safety factor being in the vehicle like that. My mind is blown that he hasn't chosen to disengage at this point. But, you know, there's a legal reason too. He's decided to effect this arrest. Once you get that first cuff on and you start processing this arrest, you have to turn them over to a peace officer. You've got to justify why you're going to disengage if you're going to do so. Outside of being in the car here, it's not really plain to see that there's a massive safety factor. Doesn't look like she's armed. She's not behaving as so. Not to say that there isn't something in the vehicle that she could take advantage of or, you know. Again, things to think about. Guys, when you commit to this arrest, you're committing to remove somebody's freedom to leave. Okay? It's a big legal aspect here.
They're coming. Let her go.
Call them again, let them know I'm bleeding, I need help urgently.
Get him off of me!
Okay,
I
here,
need urgent assistance.
Listen.
911, please.
Listen.
911, please.
Somebody grab him!
We can't.
He's fucking on top of me!
Somebody come to the
If
other
you go
door
take her keys and then you can
assist
let
me,
go, so then she can't leave.
please.
But she's bleeding, yeah.
He's bleeding, I think. They're both bleeding. They're both bleeding.
Drop your keys.
My son's crying, so
Just drop your keys, okay? Just drop your keys, and then somebody will get it at the door, and we'll get him to let go, okay?
You drop your
I
keys,
need
we'll get them off
assistance,
you.
call 911.
I did call 911.
Please don't hurt me anymore. Please don't hurt me anymore. Don't hurt me anymore. Help, help.
It's really hard to see what she's doing with her left hand, but he's pleading with her not to hurt him anymore. Again, something to think about here. The narrative at the beginning of the video was very much that this guard was using excessive force. When I think excessive force, I think serious injuries to the other person or a situation that causes or leads to serious injuries. I haven't seen him really execute any techniques outside of trying to very poorly put handcuffs onto her wrists. I haven't seen any wrist locks, arm bars, armbar takedowns, rolling armbar takedowns. I haven't seen anything applied here to really take control of her. It really highlights what I said earlier, that this guy doesn't really have any training. If he did, he certainly wasn't paying attention or taking it seriously. So guys, if you're taking a use of force course and your company's paying for you to be there, please take it seriously, because if you don't, this is what happens. And you end up on YouTube.
Drop the keys. If there's a weapon on those keys, you're going to jail for a long time.
I really hate when people say that. You're going to jail for a long time. Well, you know, you're a security guard. Who are you to say that? I would gather to say she's probably going to end up on probation for a couple of years and maybe some house arrest, or maybe paying you retribution or something. I can't imagine she's going to spend any more than 90 days to a year in jail for this.
Drop him now. Please don't stab me. Please don't stab me. Somebody come around the other side.
I'm calling 911.
Help!
Ah.
You know, the way he's talking to, there's definitely fear in his voice. I almost wonder if in the back of his head, he's really reevaluating his decisions, right? This is a fine line to walk. As I've mentioned a couple times, you got to justify your decisions, and you got to explain from a legal perspective why you're doing things. He's going to have to explain all of this in a court of law. Again, I don't think he's doing anything excessive. It's being done poorly at best.
Help! Grab her arms. Grab her arms, please.
Okay. Now, if you look through her rear driver's side window there, you can see that somebody has come to the front passenger side and is doing something to render aid. I can't see what, but it looks like other people are actually getting involved at this point.
FreshCo on 33rd Street West.
No. No. Don't bite me. I can't let her go.
Okay. And he brings up a good point. He can't let her go. And there's legal precedence for that. We can rely on 494 subsection 3. He's got to turn her over to a peace officer at this point. Okay. I get what the crowd is saying. Watching this stuff isn't pleasant. If you don't know what you're looking at, it's really easy to say that this is excessive force, but this is just poorly executed force. Remember, guys, arrests don't look pretty. They only look pretty when people are compliant and no force is needed. It takes a decision in the back of the accused mind to be a compliant person, and it takes a decision in their mind to be physically resistant, passively resistant, or assaultive.
Help me, I can do stuff. I'm bleeding. I need
Your
help.
license plate number.
Now they're fighting.
I need help.
And now the
I
security
need
guard
help.
is asking for help.
Hey, I dropped the key!
She dropped her keys.
I'm not getting off of her until police get here. Until police get here.
So it's escalating. We're trying to
He's not getting off her till the police arrive. I mean, I see where he's coming from, but again, that's a really dangerous position for him and everyone else to be in.
Come around to my side and help me pull her out of here.
Okay, so he wants to pull her out of the vehicle. That's good. It's a good mentality.
Number.
Let go of her.
He's fucking pretending that I'm doing things that I'm not!
Let go of her.
I can't do that.
Take
needs
her
to answer for this assault.
Take her license plate number then.
Police are coming to take her now. I'm bleeding. I need assistance. I'm security.
Yeah, you're security. You're not a fucking cop. Get off of her.
Okay, well, I'm not sure where they get the idea that he's pretending to be the police. As we've looked at, the criminal code has been very clear. Property owners have rights to make arrests. Their agents, in this case a security guard, have rights to make arrests. It's whether you execute that or not. And again, you got to think, guys, this is 2021. The court of public opinion has not been in our favor for a good 8 or 9 years. Keep that in the back of your mind when you have to go hands-on with people.
Who has my body camera? Can you bring it here, please? Whoever has the body camera, can you?
All right. Look at his face, guys. He's mangled pretty badly. From what I understand, from what I've heard, she gouged his eye a few times. She connected very well with that hook to the face before she got to her vehicle. He's paying the price for that. You take a look just above his eye there on the orbital bone. He's got a good cut. There's a good chance he's bleeding into the eye, which is an unpleasant thing. It's going to obstruct your vision, and it makes the situation all that much more stressful. Something to think about here. What makes a good theft arrest? Okay, let's consider that. So hypothetically, let's say we're here in the flashlight store. I know, flashlight man, right? You got to have 4 things. And the first one is selection of the item. So here I am. I've selected the item. I'm going to steal this particular flashlight. You as the security guard, you have to see me select this item amongst all the other items present. You've got to see me select it. And then from there, you have to see me conceal it in some way, shape, or form. Okay? whether that is sort of in plain sight by holding it in my hand and tucking it in behind my wrist and between my body and my hand, whether that's stuffing it to a bag, into a pocket, into an article of clothing, or under a shirt or something to that effect. There's got to be some element of concealment, as basic as that might be. Okay? The next one is one of the most important parts of this factor. You got to have what's called continuity of evidence. And that is you witnessing me, the thief, completely unobstructed the whole time I'm in the store. Okay? Now think about really how challenging that can be, especially in a grocery store. You have to see the person completely unobstructed. If you see me go behind a half a shelf, you don't know if I've set this item down or not. And at that point, any arrest that you might make is a bad arrest. Okay? Because you have to have unobstructed eyes on me the entire time. And with fines committing, that is not through a camera. Okay? It's got to be in person. The last part is they have to go past the point of purchase. So I'm in the store, I've concealed this item, you've followed me around, you haven't seen me go past anything that has obstructed me, and then I walk out of the store. Then you can arrest me for this. However, if at any point I go beyond something and you can't see me, like I said, I could set this down, I could walk away. If you arrest me, that's a bad arrest. Now, I don't know whether that's happened here or not. I don't know whether he's got all four of those factors present to have a good and lawful theft arrest. He may not. From what I hear, making that good, making all four of those conditions is very, very challenging. Given that it doesn't appear he's got good use of force training, it may be that he doesn't have good legal authorities training to go along with this.
Bring it here, please.
Let go
Can you please
of
bring it on
her.
body cam? Thank you. Okay. This is security FreshCo 33. I have the suspect in the driver's seat. Semi under control. The blood is mine.
Let go of her.
She's hyperventilating a little bit. You can see she looks stressed out. There's definitely signs of anxiety there. Not a pleasant situation for anybody to be in, for sure. My big concern with how he's in there and pushing her into the seat, there's a possibility for positional asphyxiation and everything that goes along with that, like excited delirium and whatnot. I don't know if she's a drug user. I don't know what's going on the inside of her car. I just know this is a terrible spot for him to be in. He's got her in handcuffs. I don't know why he doesn't get out and use the vehicle to his advantage and pull her out of the vehicle with the wrist. That could be viewed as excessive. So again, things to think about.
I don't know how bad it is. I'm waiting. This is the subject in handcuffs. Handcuffs in the front.
Who has my phone? Who has my phone?
She's asking for her phone.
Please, somebody! He's tightening the cuffs because I'm asking for my phone! Please help me!
Hey, man, get the fuck off of her!
Fucking asshole!
Anyone who touches me gets assault
Nobody's
charges along with
fucking
her.
touching
So
you!
everybody
You
go
assaulted her! Get the fuck off her!
Get off of me!
So something that I tell people in communications class, guys, don't argue with people. I get what he's trying to convey to the crowd, to not get involved. I think he's obviously figured out that people aren't going to help him, and they're a little more apt to help her. But when you start arguing with people, you amp the situation up. You amp other people up, and perception-wise, it does not favor you. It really represents a level of unprofessionalism, okay? And I'm going to point something else here in a couple minutes when I hear it and see it. It really, really grinds my gears when I hear that.
Wow, this is your security? Unfucking believable. You're not a cop, buddy. Fuck you. You're not a...
I don't know what the point of putting her on camera was. Maybe to get a good, clear shot of her should something happen. But, I mean, really, you got to focus on making this arrest, which hasn't really been affected yet. He hasn't taken physical control, so he can't read her rights to counsel or really deliver to a peace officer at this point yet.
Ha!
Fuck you!
Say it again. You're under arrest for assault and theft under 5,000.
My
Along with
hands!
arrest.
Please get him off of me! I'm in handcuffs! Why is he doing this? Oh, I can't feel my clothes.
Yeah, no sickness. Keep pushing those cuffs tight. Cut it out. Yeah, please loosen them when they get here. change it to a 911 call. Make a 911 call. We need them here faster.
Who has my phone?
I don't know. I don't know who has your phone.
Them here faster.
I threw your
Change it to
shoe inside.
911.
What does your phone look like? Your shoe is down there. I put it in there.
Something else here, so.
Have you seen her phone? I'm gonna put your glasses right here.
You're just making it causing my injuries to be worse and yours. So just settle the fuck down.
And there it is. As I mentioned, I'd point something out. Guys, don't swear. Don't swear when you know you're going to be on camera. It takes whatever credibility that you might have left and it tosses in the garbage can. Now I can bring something else up. Here in Ontario, we have the Private Security and Investigative Services Act. There's a regulation under that act called the Code of Conduct. And one of the sections in the Code of Conduct refers to things like F-bombs and curse words and inappropriate language. You can be charged for that. Everything's on camera now, guys. Always operate as if you're being recorded and criticized by everybody. Don't forget, this guy, guilty in the court of public opinion at this point. Already found guilty.
Doing anything.
Here, I'll hold you by the elbow. How's that? Is that better?
Fucking rent-a-cop.
Pushing my wrist away from my wrist.
What? No, I don't know her. Fuck. Get your fucking rent-a-cop off her. This is extreme. This is so extreme. He assaulted her long before she did shit.
I'm not letting you go.
God, you liar.
Settle down.
Excuse me.
Settle the fuck down now.
You know, the bystander here is saying that this guy assaulted her long before she assaulted him. Well, again, I haven't seen him really assault anybody other than him trying to put handcuffs on. And Section 25 covers that in the criminal code. He's allowed to use force to effect the arrest because she's not being cooperative. If anybody has seen any other videos contrary, I mean, we've watched nearly 9 minutes of video footage here. We have 47 seconds left, and I'll watch the rest of it. I haven't seen him throw one knee strike, one kick, one punch, an elbow, or anything to that effect. I haven't seen him use any pain compliance, legit pain compliance techniques at all. This is just a really optically bad arrest because he doesn't know what he's doing.
Settle the fuck down now.
Yeah, I know they're coming.
Where's those police? Call them again.
Yeah, we called them twice.
I'm in a lot of pain right now, ma'am. Get lost. If you don't like it, go away.
I'm sorry.
Go away.
Someone call someone.
We need another call to police. We need them to know this is urgent and I need help immediately.
There's some right there.
Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Stop that now.
All right, so it looks like some of the store employees have finally come out to sort of build a little bit of a perimeter and keep people back, which not a bad thing. It keeps the guard safe and allows him to just focus on this one person. And it looks like the store employees are being good. They're being impartial to the situation, and they're just trying to, be that sort of barrier for this guy to let him do his thing.
Hey, I'm the one who's bleeding.
You're scaring her. Get off of her.
Hey.
Wow. So, my final thoughts, guys. There's a lot to look at here. That was 9 minutes of just, wow. I mentioned a few things. Here's my overall thoughts. I don't think this guy has any training. I haven't seen one single technique be applied outside of him struggling to get handcuffs on. When I see videos where guards are not showing control and they've got handcuffs out before they've got any level of control, it really sends a message to somebody who teaches this stuff that this person needs to get trained. As well, we can look at the other factors that support that. There's a huge lack of tactical communication. He's not communicating and giving direction to the accused. He's not breathing very well because you can see at a few points he gets gassed, just absolutely gassed. You can see he's not really conversing with the crowd in such a positive fashion to create positive witnesses. The crowd was good to a point where they're not getting involved outside of just yelling at the guy. I've seen these arrest videos where people get involved and they will fight with security, and that's the last thing that you want. So it really is important that you create positive witnesses and set the narrative, okay? It's an unfortunate situation, you're guilty in the court of public opinion. But here's the interesting part. This took place about 3 weeks ago now. She's been charged with theft under $5,000 and assault by the Saskatoon Police Service. He hasn't been arrested or charged with anything. They're calling this excessive force, but outside of just poor technique and poor execution, not seeing a lot of force being used because she was able to control him much more easily than he was able to control her, right? Now, something else to think about here. I talked earlier about things like optics and PR impact, okay? And this had a lot of PR impact for all three people involved. The store was very largely involved in this at the end of the day. The store was interviewed by the media. The store owner had a PR impact that was not favorable to him. Many of these people were criticizing the store for their actions. I believe there's been reviews left because of the actions of security. And it does leave a lasting impact on them. It's really unfortunate. You also need to think about the impact to the employer. If you don't know what happened, I'll tell you. The employer, they lost the contract, which apparently was a very large contract, what I can assume was a large amount of stores to the area. And it had an impact that affected a lot of other people who are now unemployed because of this one guard's actions. Because of that loss of contract, these guys are out of jobs. And that's a really unfortunate fact. Imagine going to work, somebody else that you don't know, never met, don't interact with at another location, makes a bad decision, and now you don't have a job because of how they behaved. And that affects you at the end of the day. Okay? Think of the PR impact for the guard here involved. He's probably going to have a hard time getting a security guard job going forward. They're going to be, oh, hey, weren't you the guard that made that arrest at the FreshCo at 33rd Street in Saskatoon? And I mean, how do you reply to that? How would you reply to that? It's not a good situation. Okay, the store owner, as I've mentioned, they condemned the actions of the guard. The media have been very openly condemning the guard. There's a First Nations association that has very much condemned the actions of the guard. A lot to think about, right? So, my professional opinion, there's a huge lack of training, a lack of experience to say. You got to ask yourself, did he look at other alternatives? Did we exhaust those other alternatives before the arrest was made? I don't know, because we only saw him on the ground halfway through the incident. So it's really hard to say. I'm going to leave it on this. Store policy and company policy typically dictate that they want to see statistics that justify the loss prevention guard at the property. Okay. I understand that perspective and why it's important to show, hey, we're spending money and we're getting results. Okay. There are other ways to do that, guys. I understand these store policies and where these companies are coming from when they say things like this. But, don't forget, if you can recover property and trespass the person, you're still generating what's called an occurrence, and you're still generating reason to have you at the property. I know many store owners, and I know a lot of places, they're moving away from that hands-on mentality where they're encouraging their loss prevention to simply recover the property. Give them the option, hey, you know what, give me the stuff back, and we won't press charges, we won't refer the matter to the police, and you just won't be allowed to come back, right? It's, again, something to think about, okay? Now, we talked a little bit about public perception here. Let's take a look at some of the things that are going on in the media that relate to this. What you're about to see is Chief Bobby Cameron from the FSIN.
Individual was, and his poor judgment. And had I been there watching, I would have kicked him right in the face while he had him down on the ground.
Would have kicked him in the face. Really? Now, you're here decrying this guy's actions. You're here telling everybody that he assaulted her, that he used excessive force, and that he was totally out of control and not justified. But if you were there, you would have assaulted him too? I mean, I don't know about you, but that sort of sounds like rules for thee, but not for me. My advice, Mr. Cameron, it's time to lead by example, Okay, that was a really, really inappropriate comment. Let's take a look at something else that's going on in the media. What we have here, this is Jay Watson. He's a civil and criminal lawyer in Saskatoon. He was interviewed by the CBC in relation to this event. Okay, and he's quoted here as saying, "If just the security guard doesn't have reasonable probable grounds, was found by a court, or uses unreasonable force, he can be sued and he may be committing an offense." Reasonable and probable grounds. A lawyer said that? But wait, the criminal code is pretty clear that we can only arrest people based off of fines committing. Guys, something to think about here. This is we're in unprecedented times here. This is a difficult situation that we all find ourselves in, and it seems very much the media is against, the police and the security industry as a whole. The whole point of this video, if you've made it to this point in the video, thank you for watching right to the end. I hope this was an unbiased and objective look. If you were to say to me, "Hey, Brad, do you think this guard was justified?" I don't know, because I don't know if it was a good and lawful arrest, if he satisfied all four factors of the shoplifting arrest. I don't know if he, witnessed the selection of the item, concealment, if he had continuity of evidence. I don't know if from a legal perspective this was a good arrest, because we don't know that. But if you're gonna ask me, did I think he used excessive force? No. I don't think he was in control of the situation, and I don't think he was very well supported by whoever his employer was. Those are my opinions, guys. I want to hear what you have to say. So, like and subscribe for more content, guys. Drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I'm really curious to hear what you think. This has been Field Training with Hansy. Stay frosty, guys. Stay tuned for more.